Yeah. There he goes.
Oh my God, look at that! Look at that toad!
The squirmy worm is an effective and very deadly fly.
What's up, guys? My name's Brian,
And I'm Jeff.
and you're watching Empire Let's rip some lips.
This video is brought to you in part by Upstate Excursions and by Black Dog Outdoor Sports. What's going on, Coldwater Nation? It's Jeff. I'm joined by Colin from Black Dog Outdoor Sports, and today we'll be talking through the gear and equipment needed for salmon fishing out on the Salmon River. Thank you for joining me today, Colin.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Hey, this is Colin at Black Dog. We're your Capital District local fly fishing shop, and we carry all the gear and equipment needed for getting you on the water. Today, as Jeff mentioned, we're going to be talking about salmon fishing, and we're going to cover some of the gear and equipment that we sell here at the shop. And if you have any questions, if you've never been fly fishing before and you'd like to give it a shot, we have a full line of education and training and classes, and we also have a guiding service. So feel free to reach out to us. Nice. So Jeff, we sell a lot of different quality gear here. Everything's really nice, but we've got something for everyone's budget. So this Redington field kit is probably one of our most popular selling items this time of year. This is in a salmon set. So what makes a salmon rod, or what weight rod would we like for salmon fishing? Typically anywhere between a 7, 8, and 9 weight. And I'm sure Jeff has, other videos on describing the weights of fly rods, so that if you don't know what we're talking about, you can figure that out. So this kit comes with everything that you need. It's the rod, the reel, the line, the backing, and the leader, and it comes in a pretty convenient carry case. So a wonderful setup, about $350. We have customizable kits, so you could buy, a la carte items for anybody's budget. But this is a wonderful kit with a good warranty, and it's got everything you need.
A lot of the salmon stuff that I have for my equipment, I have a Douglas ERA reel, or rod I should say, and then I have a Lamison liquid reel. I won't get into how much that all together is very expensive, but they're not joking by the fact you can literally build anything you want here to meet your specific needs for any type of fishing that you're doing, but specifically for salmon, anything between 7, 8, and 9 weight rods, any coupling of reel that you wish, and floating leader line will mostly get you through the day.
So when we're talking about line, the reel, and the rod all have to correlate in size. So a lot of times if you're buying line, people like to buy a line weight heavy, which is essentially half a weight or a full weight heavier than what's printed on the box. The heavier line helps you throw larger flies and heavier weight, which when we're fishing for salmon, we're throwing heavy flies with potentially lots of weight. So when you're looking at the line to buy, read the grain weight on the box. And if you have any questions on deciphering which box is better or which line is better, that's why we're here. But there's two major types of line that we're going to look at. There's a weight forward floating line, which means that the line itself is going to float on the surface of the water, and then the leader, the weight, and the fly are going to then sink down to the depth desired. There's also a sinking line, and you can get those lines that sink at different intervals, which is kind of nice if you're fishing wicked fast water or really deep water. So again, deciding where you're going to go this season, the types of water you're going to be fishing, and then the types of flies will help determine the correct setup as far as line goes.
So in the early season, I prefer to have the Coastal Quick Shooter XP, as that sinks down to the water really nice, get a nice drift out of it, allows you to hit some deeper pockets while the water is still hot, and it's super easy to get a nice swing through on those lower channels that are just extra deep coming right out of the lake. But then as the season goes on, and the fly patterns start to get a little bit more varied about what the fish are taking, I'll switch to a floating line or something similar. That way the presentations that I'm able to give, something like dead drift, I'm able to dead drift eggs a little bit easier and see the leader the entire cast.
All right, so the setup of the reel starts with backing material. So the backing material goes on, and that gives us more running line. So if we're expecting to hook into a huge fish like a salmon, and that fish is ready to go and full of energy, it's gonna take off and take all my line with me. So having that backing or extra running line gives me some more distance to tire that fish out, and then hopefully work that fish over to the side of the bank, and then eventually get that fish in. So the backing material is usually 20 pound to 30 pound, and you, depending on the size of the reel, have 150 to 175 yards. Now you attach your fly line, which we just discussed, and then from the fly line, we're going to attach a tapered leader. So the leader material is tapered, so it starts off very thick and gets very, very wispy thin. And the end is called your tippet material, which is usable. When you use up all of the provided tippet material, you can add more tippet with a knot called the surgeon's knot. And then you prolong the life of that leader. So there's two types of leaders that I want to talk about. These are going to be just a standard fluorocarbon leader. You can get nylon leaders as well. Fluorocarbon is going to be a little stronger. This particular leader by Rio is going to be a 6 foot, and it's got a 10-pound test. We want to try to match up the tippet that we're tying on with a similar amount of tests so that we can have things congruent. If you're using floating line, but you're not able to get that fly down deep enough, even with adding weight, you can use a poly leader, which is a sinking tip leader, to allow you to kind of get the most out of that weight forward floating line. So these work really, really well. And a lot of people will use these if they're fishing, deep lakes and they need to help that fly get down to a much deeper depth faster.
And like you said, they'll go ahead and you can tie on barrel swivels, or you can tie on tippet rings to the end of your leaders, to the end of your tippet, so that you can take lengths of tippet off of that, so you can add weight, as well as make a system so you don't lose your rig every single time that a fish breaks you off.
Yeah.
Or you can just keep retying, or you can even take lengths of tippet off of these that hold your weights, so that you're not putting weight directly on the line that's holding your fly.
Yeah. Not only are we catching in the big fish, and sometimes we lose them, but there's always the ever-present boulders and rocks and trees down there too. So as Jeff mentioned, having a system where it's not directly linked to one, but we have another system which holds weight, it saves the entire rig from being lost.
And it's perfectly ethical. If you end up getting snagged on the bottom, you're not losing your fly. And if a fish runs you through the druggers, oh well, you didn't lose your entire leader that you spent a fortune on. Yep. You only lost a little section of tippet.
So some people like to add something else to their leader, and that's going to be an indicator, which is essentially a bobber, and that allows you to see what's going on with that line and that fly. And if it suddenly disappears, that's when we set the hook. So indicators, there's a bunch of them out there. This one by Oros is our favorite. It works amazing, and it's easy to adjust, which is really nice.
Beautiful part about the Oros is not only are these floats able to help you suspend a fly and keep track of it as it's going across the water, but it's also a drift indicator. Mm-hmm. It shows you when your line is dragging, when your line is lagging, or maybe you're too far ahead of your line's being pulled by a conflicting current. All of that is stuff that a float will allow you to see on the water, so you get the perfect presentation of the fish every time.
Very good.
So moving on to flies, there's a variety of flies that can be used on the Salmon River, and a lot of them revolve around egg patterns. Most popular are the yarn egg, but there's also some flashier patterns like Esdaz egg and a couple other variants that are very effective on the Salmon River, but for the most part you are fishing yarn eggs and egg style flies. Keeping on to the egg theme though, there are also things like egg sucking leeches in both unweighted and weighted variants. Both are very critical to have because there are a variety of leeches and bait fish, both in black and in olive, that are going to be in the river system during the time in which the salmon are running. Now the salmon, for the most part, do not feed. As far as science has proven, any salmon that is running is not technically feeding. What they're doing is they're defending their territory from any intrusion, whether it be an egg pattern, a leech, or in some cases, a black woolly bugger. But having all of those flies are a fantastic idea because you never know what the fly fishing pressure is going to look like. You have other people around you fishing various patterns, and sometimes it is the correct move to be fishing something different.
So if you're looking for a variety of flies, we've got flies here from Umpqua and Foaling Mills and Orvis. Jeff ties some specialty flies for us as well. So we'll certainly help you find what's right for you and right for your fishing destination.
Another thing that I've typically done and this can be fished on any setup, is actually beads. Now that sounds really ridiculous, but these beads are super effective if you're in really heavy high water. A lot of time when you're fly fishing and you're trying to fly fish a heavy current, you don't have enough weight to get down. You could even put on as many split shot as you want, and the fly is going to be moving too quickly for the fish to snap at. That is when I will switch to these weighted and unweighted beads. Traditionally, I'll use these closer to the Erie tributaries in New York, but I've had success with beads catching the biggest fish that I've ever caught in my life off of just the tiniest little red bead, all the way up to random blues and greens and purples. So there's a variety of baits out there that you can use for salmon fishing, but this is just only a small selection of what I would recommend.
So anytime we're throwing hooks and weights around, whether it be fly fishing or spin cast fishing, or we're in an area where there's lots of other people, we have to be cautious of our eyes. So we want to wear protective eyewear. So typically we're going to be looking at some sort of polarized sunglass. The polarization is wonderful because it helps cut the glare so we can see in the water, find the terrain, and possibly spot fish. And that's extremely helpful when wading. So wearing good glasses is going to give you the edge, and it's going to protect those eyes from hooks and weights. The last thing you want to do is have a great trip ruined by an emergency room visit with a hook in the eye. So whether they're glass or polycarbonate are going to be a little bit more impact resistant. That's probably a better choice for fishing with heavy weights and big hooks on the Salmon River.
And another big thing, you're always going to want a good set of gloves. It gets cold out there on the Salmon River, and if you're out there for a long period of time, you don't want to constantly be having to wade back in or wade back out every time that your hands get exceedingly cold. So having a good set of gloves that can both be fingerless and be a mitten are a beautiful idea to have while out on the Salmon River. Not only will it keep you safe, but it'll also makes it easier to handle some of these bigger fish that have solid tails.
All right, so we've talked all about the rod, the reel, the line, and the flies, and the other important safety gear. Now we need to figure out how we're going to carry all the rest of the stuff out there with us, which includes raincoat, lunch, fly boxes, tools, etc. There's lots of options out there, and it's going to probably take you some trial and error to figure out what works best for you. Just starting off with a couple simple examples here. Waist belts, so like a fanny pack style, or hip belts are really great. So this is going to incorporate a way for you to hold your net. It's also going to be waterproof. This is by Fish Pond. It's totally submersible. So if you do end up going in a little deep, you don't have to worry about your cell phone and your car keys and anything else getting ruined. So totally submersible is a really cool thing. They're a little bit expensive, but well worth it in the long run. So the hip pack or fanny pack style is a really good option. The sling pack is also something that people really seem to like. Much larger. This one is also totally submersible by Patagonia. It has a spot to carry an extra rod. It has a spot for you to sling your net. It's really, really comfortable and convenient. So it lives on your back, and when you need something, you kind of slide it around, open it up, and it's right there in front of your face. So the sling pack is a very, very popular option. I find it to be very comfortable, and if you get tired of carrying it, you can always just take it off. The other style would be something small that would go on your waders. That's more of a quick and dirty style of pack. They do not come submersible for the most part. If you go that deep over your waders, you're in trouble anyway. And then a backpack. So we've got one over here on the floor. Jeff, would you grab that?
Oh yeah.
So this is also by Fish Pond. We have different backpacks from Fish Pond, Sims, and Patagonia. The backpacks, they do come submersible. They come standard. Just another really great way for you to carry extensive gear. So if you're guiding, if you're out there for multiple days, this gives you the option to bring way more stuff. So packs, bags, sling packs, chest packs, all sorts of different options out there for you. Waders are going to be a super important thing to have while fishing the Salmon River. Getting in the water, being able to maneuver to different locations. If you hook that fish and you have to go in after that fish a little bit. So having waders is going to be an imperative piece of kit. So there's lots of different styles of waders. There's a huge variation in price. You can get into a really good quality of waders for about $230, and you can spend as much as you imagine. The whole purpose behind the wader is that they keep you dry. So figure out what works best for your budget and your needs. We've got a couple good options here from Simms, Patagonia, and Orvis. Another thing to consider with waders is staying warm. Even if you do stay dry, which is the goal, it's very, very chilly out there. So under wader pants is going to be something to consider. Really good long underwear, anything made of wool or polypro. We want to stay away from cotton. If you do end up getting wet, that wool or polypro material will help insulate you inside of those waders and keep you from getting too cold. When we think about boots on waders, rubber bottom boots are going to be fantastic, and we can stud those up to give you some extra traction. There's a lot of different variations in brand out there, and again, they range from fairly inexpensive to whatever you can imagine. So stop by and check out some really good options as far as waders, boots, and then warm layering systems. So there's a couple different styles of boots I just want to touch on. These are brand new by Patagonia. They're a super lightweight, very, very flexible sole, very tacky rubber bottom boot. These are going to be wonderful for covering lots of ground. So the more flex you have, the easier they are to hike in. The sturdier and more Frankenstein style of a boot is going to give you the most knee and back support while standing in one location. So depending on where you end up on the Salmon River, you may end up doing a lot of walking, or you may end up doing a lot of standing around. So there is a major difference in the soles of the boots. So all of these rubber bottom boots can be studded, and there's a couple different materials out there that you can use as studs, but a really good option because those rocks do get slimy. This is a new boot by Orvis. So this is, again, a fairly stiff boot, but this one comes with two different styles of sole. This one has an outlining rubber sole, and then it has an inside felt bottom. So felt bottom boots are fairly controversial as far as conservation goes and keeping microorganisms out of certain bodies of water, but felt does work wicked good on super slippery rocks. So again, we've got a good variety of boots out there and studs to choose from. So we've got some really fantastic net options here at Black Dog. This is probably going to be one of our most popular styles of net for fishing on the Salmon River. What makes this net so popular on the Salmon River is that the bag is extremely big, and it's got a huge hoop, and we have an extremely long handle, which allows us to reach further with less chance of spooking the fish so that it runs back up or down that river again. The large bag is going to be good to hold that huge, let's hold 30-pound fish. It's just a really, really fantastic style of net. We've got a bunch of different options here. One of the new features with a lot of the new nets out there are going to be the material of the bag itself. Traditionally, the bags used to be made from a very coarse nylon fabric material that would wear out and then shred and fray. So this is a silicone bag, and what's nice about this is that it's easily replaceable, comes in clear or black. But the best benefit on this is that it does not harm the fish. So it actually gets very, very slippery when it gets wet, and it's better for the fish's skin in comparison to that old, kind of rough and kind of hard material. Having a net retention system is going to be something that we want to think about as well. So things get crazy out there. We get running around after these big fish. You're moving from location to location, and there's tons of people around potentially. You want to be able to keep track of all your gear. So a net retention system basically gets connected to your net in a couple of different areas, and then goes to either your hip pack, your sling pack, your backpack, or your belt. That way, if you end up having to drop the net for any reason, it's not going to be going downriver and you'll never see it again. So a good net retention system is really something to think about.
And that's pretty much all the equipment you need to be out on the Salmon River. Thank you very much to Colin and Black Dog Outdoor Sports for filming this with me. It's been a lot of fun. It talked over great many things. Hopefully we'll get to part 2 here relatively soon, and we'll be talking more about casting and ethics and other things that happen out in the Salmon River, because it's a lot more than just the equipment. Other than that, I hope this is a helpful guide that gets you guys out on the river as soon as possible. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just keep your lines tight and stay safe.
All right, tight lines everybody. We'll see you all in part 2.